Recently, friend of the channel Steve asked for some words that the meanings of the words change based on the context in which they're used. Not that the word itself has to change, but that in its usage we see that it carries different meanings. Last week we had our word of the week was first. It seemed appropriate that the first example be first. And today let's take a look at the word last. So the word last in Koine is ἐσχατος. You've probably heard that, eschatological, eschatology, that sort of a thing. And so ἐσχατος means last. We're going to look at 5 examples where we get a different meaning but the same word as we look at this word last. So first up, Luke chapter 14. Verses 8 and 9, this is from the ESV with the Koine supplied, as are all of the examples today. When you are invited by someone to a wedding feast, do not sit down in a place of honor, lest someone more distinguished than you be invited by him, and he who invited you both will come and say to you, give your place to this person, and then you will begin with shame to take the lowest place. So the ESV translates it the lowest place, but literally it says ton eschaton topon, the last place. So in what regard is it last? Not the final place. He's not saying there's only one seat left. It's last in the sense of importance or prestige. You were in one of the good seats, close to the center of attention, close to the center of the action at the feast, where the Lord of the feast is seated. But now you've been bumped to a less prestigious seat, perhaps even to the seat that's farthest away from the center of attention. So it's last in the regard of importance, not in a manner of being the only one left. Let's move on and go to Mark chapter 12, verse 6. He had still one other, a beloved son. Finally, he sent him to them, saying, they will respect my son. So in this parable, a landholder keeps sending envoys to a piece of property that he owns to collect from sharecroppers. And the sharecroppers keep abusing the envoys. And then he says, well, what do I have left to do? He only has one person left to send, his beloved son. Surely they will respect my own son. And it says, the Koine says, epistelen auton ἐσχατον. He sent him last. So epistelen, he sent, auton, him, ἐσχατον, last. So in the succession of sending envoys, the final one, his son, he sends the last one. He's the most important in the context of the parable because others were servants and messengers and things like that. But grammatically here, the word last doesn't tell us that he's the most important. It simply refers to the verb epistelen. He sent him last. This is the final envoy because he's the most important one. There's nothing more I can do. If they don't respect my son, who I send, there's nothing more that I can do. We'll have to go to war with these sharecroppers. We'll have to get the legal system involved. This can't go on the way it is. So the last one sent is the one that was the most important envoy. But remember, grammatically, ἐσχατον here is referring to the last one, the final in a succession of people being sent. Next up, Matthew 12:45. Then it goes and brings with it 7 other spirits more evil than itself, and they enter and dwell there. And the last state of that person is worse than the first. So also will it be with this evil generation. So the last state here is ta ἐσχατος. Notice this is a neuter, so it's ta ἐσχατος, the condition. The condition of this guy is worse than it was before. You cast a demon out of this guy, but if there's nothing done to deal with his emptiness, what rushes in and takes the space is even worse than prior. So his end state, his final condition, will be worse than it was before. It's using last to compare the resulting situation with the prior situation. Next up, Luke 12:59. I tell you, you will never get out of debtor's prison here until you have paid the very last penny. And that phrase is to eschaton lepton. It's fascinating. You're in debtor's prison and there's no reprieve, there's no parole, there's no pardon, there's no commutation, there's no end until the totality of what is owed is paid. To eschaton lepton. The lepton is the smallest unit of currency. It's the tiniest little cent. And he says you won't get out of this debt until the tiniest little cent, the last possible bit owed, has been paid. Remarkable description. To eschaton lepton. Moving on, 1 Peter 1:20. We're going to get a twofer here in this slide, talking about the end times. He was foreknown before the foundation of the world, but was made manifest in the last times for the sake of you. And in the last times here is epesketu ton chronon, and it's literally in the last of the times. So like in the confluence of all times, Peter talks about the coming of the Christ as being the culmination of all the times, of the flowing of all the times. The Christ comes in the last of the times. And then John, in 1 John chapter 2, verse 18, says, children, it is the last hour, eschate hora. And as you have heard that Antichrist is coming, so now many Antichrists have come. Therefore we know that it is the last hour, eschate hora again. So Peter describes it as the last of the times, and John describes it as the last hour. In both cases, they're talking about not a specific hour, not a 60-minute period, but rather, kind of as Peter describes it, a period of time that is the final one, moving toward the culmination of events that lead to the ultimate kingdom, to the new heaven and the new earth, etc., etc. So there we have it, eschatos, last, having a different meaning in all of the examples, or in each of the categories of examples that we looked at. You could clearly argue that in 1 John 2 and in 1 Peter 1, they certainly had a similar, if not same, meaning. Eschatos, last. Word of the week that means different things based on the context in which it's used. Thanks, Steve, for the suggestion. Next Wednesday, we'll have another word of the week that is a word that has different meanings based on the context in which it's used. Until then, I hope you'll like, share, subscribe, tell a friend, leave me some feedback in the comments. And until we see each other again, Karis Kaya Reine Humin, grace and peace to you.